Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Dual Hearts episode 32. Yes, we are back in Val's Dream, pretty obvious from the way the last episode ended. And of course, most of you expected this was the case, since we only got 28% completion during our first trip here, and we have yet to have the opportunity to go back here during the entire game. You know, Val spends apparently the entire day working at the inn and the rest of the nights, and her nights stalking us to no particular avail. Anyway, this is all stuff we've seen already, so let's go to the second area and we'll see what's changed here that actually allows us to pick up the remaining 72% of the items. There is no back end to Val's Dream like there are in a lot of levels, but I have a comment on this later, because you could argue that both halves of Val's level we'll see during this particular playthrough. See? Check that out. Not shiny and glittery, it actually kind of looks natural. The little canopy effect is a little weird, I'm not really sure what's going on there. I think it might be some weird clipping from the background to the other half of the dream. Yeah, who cares about what's causing the boundaries of her mind and her psyche to fall apart? Let's just go get the queen. They can't possibly be related, right? Those coins that showed up are sort of like Val-shaped treasure golems or something. They're really weird. They're also extremely difficult. You can only target the head, and in fact, it's hard to get at the head, especially with the lance and the sword, unless you knock out the body first and stun it for a while, causing the head to fall to the floor. They can also charm you, which is another huge pain in the butt. Nothing particular to see here in the actual level. Hit the target, cause this vine to come down. The vines are the only things from the natural part of the level that stays when we sort of trigger that little rolling threshold to move. You'll notice that the line defining the natural part and the golden part stays a certain distance from where we are. We can fix this by getting up on the switch and hitting it. It's an interesting idea that I suppose Val has a sort of internal, sort of softer side to her that she's trying to keep away from us. Notice that even the background music changes significantly. I think it's a really cool visual implementation of that. Now that we're on the other side, of course we can hit the switch again to bring sort of the gold side back and move us to the sort of outer level of Val's mind. There's this cork here. You may have noticed this during the first playthrough, way back during episode 2 or 3. As it turns out, this actually has some purpose. It's been there the entire time. If we place a remote mine there and hit the switch, it'll turn into a cork when we're on the natural side, and then we can blow it up. And the purpose for this will become a little bit more clear as we continue to explore the level. This is actually my second try to record this. The first time I had no idea what I was doing and I actually had to ask the sheep for a clue, which is a little bit embarrassing. Yeah, this thing was filled with water. You wouldn't know it unless you actually had to go in there in the first place, but apparently it is. Moving on, check it out. Now the threshold's moving the other direction. So, I don't know. I guess there's no particular reason for Val to want to keep us on this side of her subconscious. But I guess they programmed the mechanic to work that way, and now we're stuck with it. We can, of course, reach that switch. That's why I'm trying to do it. I didn't know beforehand that it was possible. All it does is lower this little gate down in the water underneath the tunnel with a switch on it. Little monuments. But first, while we're on the natural side, and this is something I've forgotten to do during my very, very first playthrough way back in the day. It never really occurred to me, but you can actually return, now that we're on the natural side of the dream, to return to the first part of the level, and while that was previously just a simple tutorial area, now it is also covered in green. And there's a few items we can pick up here, so let's go do that. There's some general fan interpretation that the title of the game, Dual Hearts, refers specifically to the fact that a number of people that we meet, specifically Val, because hers sort of interpretation of this idea, oops, didn't mean to fall, is one of the most obvious. That's kind of interesting. The falling puts us back at the start of the level as opposed to where we came in. Either that or I had a really sloppy edit there and forgot to put us back where we would have come in. Anyway, there's another tummy up fragment right here. Let's get that. And I believe that's it. Two very simple, easy to pick up items that you would never really think to get. Yeah, just double check to make sure I picked that up this time. You would never really think to go back here, except out of raw experimentation. But required for 100% completion, so let's go do it. Anyway, back in the water underneath that little island, there's a bunch of rings that we can pick up, but I'm not going to show that because frankly it's incredibly boring. And out we go, and look at that. It's a little girl surrounded by vines in case it isn't easy to see. And let's set her on fire because that's what we do. Heroic sociopathy at its finest. I'm sure she'll be fine, right? She's made of stone or something, apparently. Definitely goes hand in hand with the idea of sort of some deep-seated repressed memories that Val is trying to keep from us. Remember that he did have sort of a hint of a memory return to him when he picked up those bells inside his pocket a few episodes ago. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Of course, now this part of the level, now that we're on the inner, and we're a level deeper in Val's subconscious, will lead somewhere completely different than the little boss arena that it led to previously. I believe you can still get to the Moneybag Arena if you're on the gold side of this level, but there's nothing to see there, so it doesn't really matter. It also really creeps me out that the threshold that divides the gold and the natural part of the dream makes the water turn to gold when you're inside there, when you're looking back at the gold part of the level. It's basically just solid gold. Sort of makes me unnerved to think what would happen if we would transition back to the gold part of the level while we're in the water on the natural side. Anyway, this is pretty creepy, but no time to stare at the gigantic cosmic hole in the middle of our memory. We've got Stumps the bomb. First one had nothing. The second one, obviously I had no idea specifically which one had the item in it. One of them has a gold Essamon. Now that we've got that, just check this one just to make sure I'm not missing anything. This is a lot like Lillian's Dream, where there's a bunch of sort of little natural objects for us to explode. So I treat nature kindly with explosives. Cutscene time, never mind. You again. There's a really creepy baby's crying noise, which I think is supposed to be her, but sounds like someone who's about 6 months old. I'm not so surprised, you just saw her in the last part of the level. But look! Aww. Yep, she's sobbing like a baby, literally. Check it out, it's mini Stompy! Oh my god, he's adorable. So yes, in case it wasn't obvious, we are supposed to know this girl. We did meet her back when we were a little kid. I love it. In we go. I guess he can swim by himself. We never really bothered to do it without Bumble. One part that always confused me about this sort of scenario is that they never mention their parents, and Stompy just kind of leaves at the end of it, never really goes anywhere, just sort of runs off. It's never explained. They obviously never saw each other again after this, so it's unclear what he was doing here and who was supervising him. It's kind of funny to think that maybe at the age of 5, he was already like a junior rank adventurer off on his own, and now at the age of whatever he is, 14 or 15, he's, you know, among the world's greatest treasure hunters. Guess they start him young in this universe. Nope. Thinking's for chumps. Anyway, let's beat people about the head with the symbolism a little bit more and show off the chimes that we saw way back during that previous cutscene. Of course, somehow Stompy forgot this entire thing, even though he thought somehow to carry the chimes with him during basically the rest of his life. Although I guess since he also carries those 9 gigantic orbs with him all the time, we don't really see them on his person, that he must have some kind of like hyperspace pocket or something that he keeps everything in. Maybe he just carries everything he's ever picked up. I mean, he's a treasure hunter, he's probably a pack rat too. Yes, okay, we get it. It's very sweet, actually, to think that basically, considering what happened prior to us entering Val's dream, that her entire life basically has been leading up to this moment. To think that she's been following Stompy around specifically because she wants to protect him since he saved her. Or I should say at least her mother's pendant way back, and she's basically idolized him ever since then. It sort of puts her perceived incompetence into a new light because she's intentionally sort of staying a step behind him specifically for the purpose of protecting him, which is very sweet. And, of course, it makes me feel terrible for having made fun of her during the course of the entire game, but I don't really care because, frankly, she's mostly obnoxious, but whatever. Anyway, at least the child version of her is relatively helpful, but since this is a video game, we will need to complete a minor objective before she actually does anything tangible for us, rather. Hide and seek. Of course, the problem not isn't necessarily finding her, because she isn't really hidden. She's basically standing next to these trees the whole time. The problem is really navigating one of these really confusing square-shaped levels similar to Lillian's Dream, where everything looks the same, and in this case, even worse, there's fog. Let's pick up these rings. I'm not sure what this little picnic basket is. It's covered with vines. I think it's one of Val's, I assume, but it never really comes up during the plot. Some of these trees have items at the top. I'll show some of them. There's a gold Essamon. There's a bunch of random stuff hidden all over the place. There's Val next to that tree. We're going to skip her for now, but I'm going to go see her later. And this is House, which will eventually be the entrance to the next portion of the level, but not until we find her 3 times. Rule of 3. That's how video games usually work. I did think there was something on top of the chimney, but as it turns out, there is not. Can't get in there yet. No. Look somewhere else. Of course, there's a river, too, which is basically your only landmark. There's a tummy up fragment. There it is. Go back. Turn around. Turn around. I guess we'll just go forward. The level does loop. Just like Lillian's Dream, and just like a couple of the other square-shaped levels similar to this. So we can just continue to move around the river. It's much smaller than Lillian's Dream, too, so it loops rather quickly. Now that we've picked up all the rings, we can... Okay, I didn't get it in the second try, either. Jeez. That's terrible. It's a pain to turn around in the water, too, because Bumble has a habit of getting hung up on the surface of objects in the water. Of course, there's an HP up fragment in here, too. There's one in every level, and it happens to be in a stump in here. That gives us 15 health points. I believe we've only got 4 HP up fragments left to find in the entire game. We'll be picking those up in episodes 34 and 35. Refill a little bit. Let's go actually try to find Val now, because I believe first one of her is right here. Let's go do that. Hello! Yeah, she was really well hidden. Kind of like in the cartoons where they hide behind the tree. It's like, you can't see me? No, actually we can, because the game is in 3D! Technology. Ha. Why can't he believe that? After all the things that we've seen so far. I'm going to skip to the second one, and then pretty soon, shortly after that, to the third one, because the rest of the portion of this footage is just me running around looking at the tops of trees for items, and there's only 1 or 2 left in the level. So as you can imagine, I was not particularly successful. Can't find her. Oh wait, there she is. The actual threshold where you sort of recognize, where the game recognizes you having found her, is kind of weird. You'll notice the first time around when we passed by her, we came awfully close and didn't register. You just have to get to a certain distance. You don't have to lock onto her or hit her or anything. Anyway, somehow that proved our dedication to her. Makes a lot of sense, I know. Last thing to do is just to return to the house to get to the last, 4th, and final portion of the level. But first, one more tummy up fragment. Possibly one more. I forget exactly how many items there are in this part of the area. Oh no, we're there. A bunch of new enemies in here. This is another monster generator style enemy, except it actually counts as a monster as opposed to the ones that we saw in Hannah's Dream and Gregor's Dream. It spits out little jewels that turn into these sword-wielding guys. I don't believe you get experience for them, which is kind of a pain. So this, I believe, this is another stump with an item in it. Yep, gold Essamon. We'll be seeing more of the treasure chest guys in this next area. Let's get in the house. And what does the 4th part of the level have in store for us? This, to me, I believe, is another really cool interpretation of a phenomenon which is very common in games, the sense of the idea of someone's mind sort of falling apart. Nobody has any real psychoses in Dual Hearts in general, but so I guess this is about the closest we're going to come to someone actually having a mental breakdown. I suppose this represents the queen actually taking over her mind or something. Of course, the sheep knows exactly what's going on, more or less. Not that they can do anything about it, ever. Yes, that's a reasonable hypothesis considering the stone came shooting out of the other end in the first place. Head for the source. Anyway, this is pretty straightforward. We're going to move from across the corridor, basically, kill a bunch of monsters, solve an easy puzzle, and we'll beat back the corruption slowly. And on the left and the right, as we continue to move down the corridor, some items will spawn, which I will have to pick up, because we are obsessed. Yeah, see, these guys will continue to spawn these little jewel monsters. They don't, as I said, you don't continue to get experience for them, which is important because we're still about 50 experience points away from maxing out the hammer, and having the hammer at max is extremely helpful. Here I decided to find out if you can jump on the sides of these little platforms while the spikes were up, but no, you cannot. And I guess you found it all along with me by watching that part of the video. Let's skip that puzzle because I'm mad at it, and I'm mad at Bumble for not getting under me. It's the worst Yoshi ever. There we go. This puzzle is extremely aggravating. You can probably already see what we have to do. We have to throw that sunblock onto the matching tile while it flashes the sun and while it goes back and forth. In case this isn't obvious from the cut, it took me a number of tries to do this. It makes it a little bit easier to get on top of the tile, but you also have to be very careful about where you throw it when that happens, because frankly, you throw it pretty far. So let's just illustrate that. Of course, we get another one back as soon as we throw it into the pit, so it doesn't really matter. Honestly, I have no idea what the general mnemonic is to try to time this correctly. I just kept throwing it until I got it right. And when you do it, the sun explodes into a Goldecimon, so that's another one of those. Unfortunately, the ones that are harder to get don't count as anything as more than one, so whatever. This puzzle on the other side is significantly more straightforward, but only gets tummy up fragment, of which there are over 100, more than there are Goldecimons, certainly. But that puts us at 46 points, 4 off the max. Certainly getting there. And of course we have at least one more entire level to play through. We'll be doing that in the next episode. Spikes! I have no idea what to do here. Oh wait. This is so last dungeon. Solve that, get the nice little chime. We love that. It's Pavlovian response to solving puzzles in video games. Double check to make sure I didn't miss anything to the left and the right, but no, it's not until after we beat the next set of enemies. This one they tried to make a little bit more difficult by including a jelly drop, or hover drop, or whatever it was called. But of course, since we have the hammer, and the hammer is absurdly overpowered, we have no reason to care about the aerial enemies in this particular context, unless they're sort of flying from a great height, much higher than, you know, right above our heads. Go. This is a huge pain in the butt, actually. This is one of those switches you have to hit with the arbalest and the relevant elements, but you can't lock onto it, so you kind of have to guess as to what the proper angle is. Obviously, you can't just jump over there. The whole point of hitting the switch is to get you passage over to the other side. Let's keep trying. This is where we really need an aiming mode, which the game does not have. No. No. Wait. Oh, looks like I had it there, but no, I didn't. Bumble, of course, is doing his dance. Thanks, man. You're a big help. He falls off the side. Oh my god. Too bad he doesn't lose health for doing that. He deserves it. What a jerk. Probably should have sped this up. This is taking longer than the stupid... Oh my god, we only have 10 seconds. Go, 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 go. Thankfully, at this point in the game, I would hope, and in fact I am, you should be extremely used to the idea of sort of fine-tuning Bumble to flutter onto one of these little platforms as they move. Oh wait, I was wrong. I'm not. Sigh. Anyway, back to where we were. This one barely counts as a puzzle. It's just there to give us an opportunity to use the one item that we picked up after the previous dungeon. We'll pick up that obelisk with the gauntlets. It's the first time I believe I've actually shown it on camera. And move on. Should be another one of these treasure chest enemies coming up. No, there are no puzzles. But never hurts to check. Oh wait, there's this. This was back during the, we could have done while I was hitting the lightning switch, but I sort of forgot. Ow. Did that one wrong. Success rate is not particularly high for this level, for this episode. That is not why the episode is 20 minutes. I just felt like it was a better division of time. I swear that's the only reason. Of course, like all the previous versions of this puzzle, the cycling gets faster as you go. Fast enough that I sort of had to guess on the timing of the last one. But thankfully we got it right. I believe in later videos with similar puzzles with the actual skulls. The skulls, of course, if you hit one, it resets the entire chain, and you have to start over again from scratch, which is very, very aggravating when you get two versions of that puzzle that have 4 or 5 buttons on them. And these guys, again, of course, we can kill them with the hammer indiscriminately. So let's just sort of crowd control these jewel guys while we take out the jelly drops. At this point, just using the hammer produces so many Ecimons that even considering that it kills some of the Ecimons that it produces with the shockwave from the hammer attack, it's almost impossible not to just spam the hammer attack on enemies, kill what you can, aim for whatever's left over with the backswing on the hammer, then refill your health whenever you take a little bit of damage and let Bumble eat the S-mons that you're producing. That's basically all you need to do to cover the majority of melee situations for the remainder of the game. The Mystic Hammer is that overpowered. I wanted to see if I could get him to eat the last S-mon that I needed to fill up, because we're getting very close to the end, but as it turns out, I could not. This puzzle, again, is pathetically simple. Hit these three switches. There's no actual sort of chime this time to say that you got it right, so I actually hit another charge attack, thinking that I still had another one to go, but I did not. Boss time! What does it say? Dreams can only be defeated by their kins, and the tool of destruction back to the creator. Sounds like Aghanim or Ganon from Zelda. We'll cover that tomorrow, though. See you then.